When the art day gets rough, you just gotta keep on punching. And here's your Thunder Punch Daily with Jersey Drozd.
I'm going to do that thing that I do at the beginning of every Thunder Punch Daily by beginning with an anecdote that tries to encapsulate the point that I'm trying to make with this entry. So I'm at one of my high school residencies, and I'm working with a student, a junior in high school, who is an accomplished illustrator in his own right. He's pretty good at what he does. And he's trying to design a logo for a class project. And he started with, and to give the context, it's to create an aspirational image that encapsulates sort of like a go get 'em, the future's yours kind of thing, while also encompassing an anniversary of an organization. It's our 60th year, and let's keep moving towards the future kind of idea. And this kid landed on the image of a clock. And he was really struggling with how to make this clock design interesting. And as I watched him struggle, I said to him, maybe it would be a good idea to take a step back from the clock and let's just think of positive verbs that move toward the future. Let's just brainstorm as many verbs as we can think of and see what emerges from that. The clock might be the image to go with, but it might be that you're kind of stuck on this, and breaking ourselves loose could be by just making a list. And once we're exhausted of this list, we'll review it and see what's in there that your subconscious is telling you about possible images of reaching for the future while acknowledging the past. And I saw this poor kid, just deflating. He was so sad that I was asking him to do this. And it was because I was asking him to work in a modality that he doesn't traditionally work in. This kid is a talented illustrator who has thus far intuited everything he's doing, and to step back and abstract it out into language and then go back into the image making felt very unnecessarily adding a step to the process. And as in that moment when I watched him feel frustrated with me, I felt a empathy and a sadness for 16-year-old me, whose art teacher tried to get him to do something very similar. Because when I was 16, I said, this is the way I do it. I have accomplished a certain level of skill that is being recognized by the people around me, so I don't have to engage in ambiguity anymore. Whew! Ambiguity done. Man, 16 years of ambiguity. Who needs it? Glad that's over. And if you don't know where I'm going, I'm saying no, it's ambiguity all the way down, just like the turtles all the way down, right? And I don't know if that will be part of this young student's life, but it was this moment where I was recognizing my own young self fearing embracing ambiguity. And what's this got to do with this episode's topic? Well, I got another entry in the Ask Me Anything page at jdrozd.com/AMA, where you can share your thoughts, questions, and wonderings about things around my art making, particularly the inscrutable Dr. Baer. And this question that was submitted reads as follows. I love the real-world treasures that exist as physical charms that connect us to Dr. Baer. Extra points for cool, glowy effects. Were these artifacts created before, after, or in tandem with the story? First of all, thank you for saying kind words about the ceramic and other objects I've been making that are real-world artifacts of the world of the inscrutable Dr. Baer. That means a lot because I really enjoy making them, and this goes back to my childhood. I was always a sucker for any product that felt like it was of the world, of the imaginal world I was participating in, right? Like when you went and bought a real lightsaber from Star Wars, when the Masters of the Universe toy line came out with a real He-Man sword that you could hold in your hands and his shield. You bet I wanted that. I loved participating in that world in some way or another. But also, it's like as I'm messing around with that, I don't know if this is interesting to anybody else. So it's very gratifying and meaningful to hear people respond positively to them. And if you haven't seen them, I've been making little clay talismans based on symbols from the world of the inscrutable Dr. Baer, with lore sheets that include a backstory of where this object would be found, what its provenance is, what's the history of the mythical symbols on it, as if you went to the gift shop at Dr. Baer's house and got this little item. It comes with like a little provenance sheet with a stamp from Dr. Baer. And I've recently even broken out to making little ceramic cat figurines, which are ceremonial objects which figure into the news story, The Case of the Mummy Express. Now, to answer the question, this is where we go back to my initial anecdote, is something that's changed for me in a big way in the last about 10 years is my embrace of the word artist to encompass all the ways in which I move in the world. And I know I shared this on another microcast. It might have been Fabulous Secrets, might have been Thunder Punch Daily. I tried finding it. I couldn't find it. And I didn't give up because I was lazy, but because a voice said to me, hey, you don't have to catalog your entire life. You can repeat some ideas sometimes if it's necessary. That aside, let me repeat some ideas. Very briefly, when I was 16, I was told by the teachers and well-meaning advisors in my life that illustration and comics were not real art. They were commercial art. So they were encouraging me to not go to art school, but to go to a trade school, learn graphic design, learn what do they call it? It was like medical illustration or architectural illustration, but real artists don't do what you want to do. And I received that as I'm doing a lesser art. My art teacher kind of pointed to kids in the room saying, that kid over there, they're going to go to art school. You're going to go to trade school. And trade school, even to this day, in my opinion, carries a lot of cultural baggage that I'm not crazy about. But when I was 16, I took it as a wound. And in that wound, I became very fierce in saying, well, if making commercial art, in other words, art that appeals to a broad audience, is lesser, I'm lesser, and I'm proud to be lesser. So when people would say, oh, you're such a talented artist, I would say, no, I'm not an artist, I'm a cartoonist. I talked myself out of having access to the word artist for a long time. And then 10 years ago, my beloved wife convinced me to take a watercolor class with her just for fun. And I was very scared. I was just like that 16-year-old me who was like, but this isn't how I do it. I have control over my art. I know what I'm going to make. I have an image in my head. It happens on the paper and I feel good about it. When I was doing watercolor and my teachers looked over my shoulder and said, well, you tried. That felt awful. But then I learned to really fall in love, not only with watercoloring, but with this mindset of, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to put some water and some pigments on this paper. It's going to try to get away from me, and I got to try to get ahead of it. And we're going to see what comes out of that racing dynamic. And it helped me not only embrace the word artist, but embrace the word ambiguity and really embracing the role of art making, or not the role of art making, the method of art making where I create conditions through which emergent qualities can happen. And when that happened, once I started practicing that, everything for me emotionally changed about being an artist. Suddenly it became so rich and so nourishing that, like I've said a dozen times upon finishing The Inscrutable Dr. Baer in The Case of the Two-Faced Statue, it was so meaningful what I went through in making that book. I said to my friends, it almost doesn't matter if anybody buys it, because I got so much from just going through the journey of making it. And in other words, it wasn't something to endure, it was something to experience. And that shift in framing and perspective only came about because I embraced the idea of being an artist and standing in space with ambiguity without treating it like an emergency signal. So, which came first, the talisman or the story of the talisman? The truth is they both emerge at the same time through my independent investigations of the different art forms. So in 2001, I was working on an 8-volume graphic novel series, quote unquote. Ha ha ha. That's what so many of my young students say that to me. Like, I'm going to do the next One Piece. I'm going to do the next Naruto. It's going to take me 20 years. It's going to be 1,000 volumes, and I'm like, yep, I was there. I had this story called The Black Hole Equation, which was going to be 8 graphic novel volumes. It was this massive Tolkien in space epic, and I was developing languages for it, different species. I was developing all of their architecture, all the things that I thought you were supposed to do as a serious cartoonist. And part of that investigation was me developing what I called the solar alphabet. It was like, here's the alphabet of the common language in this science fiction universe. And while it sounds like I'm making fun of my younger self, the kid was really reaching, right? I'm not gonna sneer at somebody who's reaching. It's just that he didn't have the context to know that, no, you're not going to do an 8-volume graphic novel series, bro. You don't have the experience yet. Get some books behind you, and then we'll see. But one of the things that the kid was doing that was really, I applaud him for, is he sat down to say, how can I design an alphabet that is somewhat phonetic, somewhat based on, the English language alphabet that I know, but also, can I base the letter forms around what pictures happen in my head when I sound out the phonetic consonant and vowel sounds? And so that's where all the vowels became based on circles, and all the consonants became based on angular shapes, but like with different variations. And it was by no means scientific. It wasn't based on any kind of research. It was just all intuition. But it was a neat looking alphabet. But I didn't go anywhere with this graphic novel series. I sort of ran out of steam. I set it aside while I worked on other projects, and I never got back to it. Well, come around to 2002, 2003, 2004, I'm working on this graphic novel / webcomic / graphic novel called The Front Rebirth, in which I included a scene where these 2 demonic creatures show up. And again, this is where young Jersey was always biting off more than he could chew. He's like, the front is going to be my next 8-volume graphic novel series, so I can lay in hints here for bigger things to come, which will tie back into all the world building I did in the Black Hole Equation. It's going to be so awesome. It'll have big payoffs. So these 2 demons show up, and they are talking together, but I wanted it to be an alien language. Well, I had this alien alphabet that I put together. So in the word balloons, they speak with those letters. I never tell you what they're saying. It's always just meant to be. It sounds mysterious and a little bit menacing, right? That book gets published in 2006, and I never do. Well, I do like one little story after that, but I never do much more with that. So now we go all the way to 2021, 2022, when I'm working on the inscrutable Dr. Baer. And I've got these scenes where Gallus Lugubrious is opening portals using an incantation. And I was like, oh, I've got this mystical alphabet sitting around from 20 years ago. I'll just use those as letters. So when he opens the portal, he says the little incantation in those letters. You can see it in the book. And when the book was finished, and I was waiting for it to be published, I started messing around with ceramics. My wife is versed in a lot of different art. And she had purchased a kiln, and we had a bunch of clay, and I was like, there's all this clay. I wonder if I could make little like found objects from the Dr. Baer world, but what would I put on them? I have this alphabet that's been sitting around. I could just like make little like sort of runic objects like you'd find like you're digging around in like some kind of like, woodland glen, and you find this little thing that somebody used to wear on a necklace. And it has mysterious symbols on it. And I've got the alphabet, so why not? Just do that. So my investigation in playing with clay led me to that idea. But then the next step was, well, I don't think I have the skill yet to carve these symbols into the clay and have it look any good. I mean, I could practice it. But I also have a 3D printer. And I also just started messing around with this thing called Blender, this 3D design application. I had just made a model of Dr. Baer's house as a means to assist my work in Clip Studio Paint so that I don't have to work out the perspective of Dr. Baer's house every time, because Clip Studio Paint lets you import 3D models. What are they called? OBJ files that you can export out of Blender. So I was already messing around with Blender for another reason, but then I thought, well, hey, I could take the vector files of this alphabet that I made in 2001, take it into Blender, extrude them into stamps. I could stamp it into the clay. And now I can make these fun little things. And it was very meditative to sit there and cut the clay, stamp them, let them dry, glaze them, fire them. And I was just having fun doing it. It was just this fun little, me getting to play in the world of the comic without trying to think like, oh, and this will be a really good business venture. Yes, I'm selling them, but it's not like they're like making me a lot of money or anything. And that wasn't the hope. The hope was just to like play with the world in a different modality for myself and then put them into the world to see if anybody else wants to play with it. And then we get to the new book, The Case of the Mummy Express, which I have a blog post that I'll link to in the post with this audio, where I share like this month-long journey I went through to coming up with the idea of The Case of the Mummy Express. At the time of this recording, the current webcomic I'm doing for the second Dr. Baer story, which I can say is actually going to be published as a book. I'm working on the deal on that right now. Very excited. But that was in November of 2024, where that all really kicked into gear. In January of 2024, when I was playing around with making these talismans and making 3D printed stamps of various kinds, I thought, well, I would really like it if I could sculpt on my iPad, because I would be in my residencies, I'd have some downtime, and it'd be like, it'd be really cool if I learned, if there was an iPad app that let me do what I do in Blender. And sure enough, I found something called Forger from Maxon. It's no longer in use now. I think it's ZD Brush. But anyway, I would sit on my breaks and just mess around. And I started messing around in this 3D modeling app. I made a little cat. I don't know what this cat is. I wonder what this cat is. I am curious what this cat is. And I 3D printed it and said, well, I wonder if this could be some kind of like Russian nesting doll, or just like a little talismanic figurine that I could like paint with glaze and do different things with. I don't know yet, but the curiosity's there. And then I thought, well, wait a second. If I make a negative image of this, I could create what's called a slab mold. I could push the clay into the slab mold, like old Play-Doh molds. For anybody who's of Gen X age, the Play-Doh used to, and I don't know if they still do, they used to come with these little like sandwich molds where you like put the Play-Doh in and smoosh the two ends together and out comes a Darth Vader figure. So I could do something like that with these cat figures, and I could press the clay to make these little ceremonial figurines and figure out what symbols and images go on them. I had that figured out first. I was going to do 4 cats. There was going to be the warrior, the lover, the magus, and the healer. And they were all going to correspond in color and in function to the 4 primordial magics that make the 4 wisps in Dr. Baer's staff. How I would do a story around this, I have no idea. This is just be playing with the world building of my story and just making objects and coming up with cool patterns and color combinations based on what I had so far. And this page is actually, I'll link to this page. It's in the webcomic, like when Dr. Baer is talking about the cat figurines. So this is like January through March of 2024. I'm just messing around with cats, with cat figurines on the side. This is something I'm just doing a few hours here, a few hours there, and I'm letting it stew. I'm not rushing to make a product. I'm not rushing to figure out what the audience wants or to anticipate what the audience wants. I'm not looking at trends. I'm not doing any kind of like research on this. I'm just playing because it's fun for me to play on this, okay? And then November rolls around, and I get gripped by this idea of Victorians in the post-Napoleonic Wars collecting mummies and having mummy unboxing parties in their house where they're putting mummies in their tea and they're like putting mummies in their ink, and they're doing these ghoulish things with human remains because they're rich and powerful people, and rich and powerful people get to do weird stuff, right? And I thought, this is all in the post about like the origin of the Mummy Express, but I was like, that's the story I want to do. I want to do a story where Dr. Baer has to protect a group of mummies and get them to their homeland. How are they going to get there? Is it going to be on a plane? Is it going to be on a car? Oh, it's a train. It's an old steam engine because I want to evoke that image of Victorian era life. So they're on a steam engine going to the cat grass, or going to the homeland of these mummies. Now, in the first book, the case of the Two-Faced statue, I showed mummy mice, and I thought, well, maybe they should be just a bunch of mummy mice. And then I looked at this cat figurine that I was working on. I was like, well, wait a second. Maybe they're cat mummies, and they're going to the cat grasslands, which is on the map in the book. So I can chart a course of that's where the train line goes. And these cat figurines can figure in somehow. How? Well, one, it could be like part of the architecture of the cat grasslands. When they get there, we'll see those figurines like monoliths or like henges. And I've already got the model made. But two, I thought, well, what if there was a special ceremonial figurine that somebody, the conductor of the ceremony, as in the conductor of the train, has to wear this sacred cat talisman to get them to, and the mummies will follow whoever wears this talisman to the final destination. So you could see, this is what I call, and I should have said this at the top, I call it a curiosity loop. It's a curiosity loop of I'm just letting myself rest, not rest. It's not rest. It looks like rest. Because I think we erroneously conflate strenuous effort with trying, whereas trying can also be patiently letting things emerge. I sat with this image of cat figurines for 5-6 months, more than that. And I let myself not know what they wanted to be. And then when another inspiration struck, namely the story of the case of the Mummy Express, I let those ideas feed back into each other. Created this feedback loop of my interest in 3D modeling in Blender, which I started investigating in order to expedite and make easier my comics drawing, led me to assisting my work in ceramics, which led me to generating ideas for future Dr. Baer stories. So everything feeds on itself. Or I shouldn't say it that way. Everything supports itself. All the energy moves through a cycle between all the different spaces. And I absolutely love it. And it has given me a softer spine when it comes to entering spaces where I don't know what's going to happen, namely other art forms. Now I don't feel so scared of trying other things because I know that if I just relax and let myself learn it at the pace I need to learn it, it will wind up supporting and reinforcing other interests that I have. And when it comes to the glowy effects on the Wind Witch talismans, the third Dr. Baer story, which I already have the first round of thumbnails done on. The story's essentially written. It needs a little bit more. I got to play with it. But the idea of witches is in it. And so I've been playing around with the idea of witches in my fictional universe. And so I thought, well, let's play around with what would a witchy talisman look like. And so I went to my solar alphabet. I looked up the letter W. And I was like, okay, how can I expand the letter W into other design motifs? Well, this is the W for witches. Oh, wind witches. Okay, now we got wind witches. So we got like the alliteration thing. Okay, well now how can I expand the letter W from this alphabet to include wind motifs? And then one day I just said, I wonder, it'd be really neat if I could make glow-in-the-dark talismans. Do they make glow-in-the-dark glaze? And so I did a search. Sure enough, there is a glow-in-the-dark glaze. Now it's a low-fire glaze, so it changes the way I have to make the talismans, but that's fine. It's really neat that I can make these little black talismans that, when you put it under light and walk into the dark, it literally glows like magic, right? All of this is just what I describe as this curiosity and I would say a kind of a patience with that curiosity to let the connections emerge. And there is a vigilance to it, I think, because I have to practice that curiosity all the time. And I have to be careful to not let myself slip it back into that 16-year-old mode of, but this is the way I do it. I just do it this way, that's all. I'm a cartoonist, I'm not other kinds of things. I can't write a list. I intuit through drawing, right? not specifically that statement, but that mode. You know what I'm talking about? It's that energetic mode of being where you say, but no, this is the way I do it. So don't offer me anything else. Instead, for me, the curiosity loop is saying like, well, what else? What am I missing here? And my students make fun of me for this all the time. Is some language I say in the room is when I'm talking with the students about an idea, they'll offer me an answer. And I don't like saying, that's a good answer. That's a good question. What I like to say is, oh, why'd you say that? Say more. I want you to elaborate on that. And the students make fun of me. They say like, oh, say more, Mr. Drost. And it's sweet. It's very sweet that they're like sort of like offering me gentle mockery of a proclivity that I have while at the same time practicing it. It's like a safe way for them to practice this notion of genuinely being curious about other people. Which I'm like, yes, I hope you do say that to people, because not a lot of people say that. I wish more people said say more. But again, this is like an embodiment of that idea of, instead of saying, well, I figured out how to do it, so now I don't have to sit with that ambiguity anymore. No. I invite that ambiguity in, and I want to sit in it. Because sitting in it allows the emergent qualities to happen, where connections between different ideas will occur, which will lead to cool things to make. Now, I offer this as my way of existing that makes me feel alive. Because somebody's going to come in and be like, well, now you're giving me advice and I'm not going to make any money because you only give advice for people who want to be successful. Okay, I'm going to push that aside because that's not my objective here. Yes, I want to make money. And yes, I'm always trying to make money at everything that I do. But I'm just as much trying to make things that make my life feel bigger. Both can be true. And while I haven't... See, I'm feeling myself getting mad about this. And while I haven't made like a boatload of money off of any of my talismans yet, I've taken them to a few spaces where I've showcased them live, and I've watched people interact with them and be like, whoa, and without even knowing what the book is, just getting one. Okay, there's my quote unquote evidence. There's my market research to prove that it's like a thing that people want. And I have to do like the legwork of telling people about it to get them to buy it and all that stuff. Yes. But, and I'm not saying that's less than. I'm just saying it's equal to me having the rich and transformative experience of having that curiosity loop to help me generate things. It's as important to me to make a product as it is for me to have an experience and deliver an experience. The three legs of my stool, if I were to like turn this into some kind of like PowerPoint talk with bullet points, is yes, make products, yes, have experiences that are only mine, and yes, create things that offer presence that help other people see themselves in the work that I do. Sure. But for this point, the point of the question was, what's the path of genesis from idea to object to story? It's a very circular thing for me. And it's born out of a stance that has shifted the moment I said, I'm not just one thing. And that's kind of been the chip on my shoulder in the classroom, is like, I tell my students all the time, it is not important to me that you love this the way I love this. I'm satisfied with my love of comics. I don't need you to be on my side on that. But what I'm really interested in is what's in your imagination, and how will you embrace your birthright of creativity in some form for the rest of your life. It's yours to have, however it manifests, whatever art form it is. And that's something that I think the compartmentalization that a lot of forces in our world ask of us, the diminishing that our world asks of us, and when we don't have necessarily a lot of really good influences on us to help us navigate those pressures. I know for me, I ate that. I swallowed all of that. I am just this because everybody seems to say so. And I'm just going to be fiercely proud of just being that small thing. And the moment I said, like, let's be a bigger thing, boy, things got a lot cooler. So that. Well, I went really long on this one, and if you made it to the end, thank you so much for being so patient with me. And if you are still curious about things, there's the thoughts, question, wonderings form at jdros.com/AMA, where you can ask me anything you're wondering about regarding all this art making stuff. And I would be glad to wonder about it with you. This isn't the same as being in presence with you and sitting across from you and saying, say more to you, but it's not nothing. And to that end, this is something that I want to start doing more in the Dr. Baer Discord, as I realized I do have a platform for offering presence, and I think it's going to have to happen there. So if you haven't joined the Dr. Baer Discord yet, that's at drbaer.com. There's a link on there to join the Discord, and there's a couple of live channels where we can do hangouts, and I'd like to do something that's a little bit less structured, less like a live stream, more like a just chilling and making art together kind of space. But more on that later. And then, of course, if you want to check out the talismans, they are at tinyastronaut.etsy.com. It's also linked on my website, jdros.com. So thank you again for the question and the wondering. And I'll be back soon with another Thunder Punch Daily. And until then, remember, everybody,
there are times when everybody dreams of becoming very rich or powerful. But what they don't think about are the problems and responsibilities that go with it. In today's story, He-Man was tested, and he proved his worth when he was able to resist the temptation to use his great power for any selfish gain. He knew that it's just as important to know when not to use force as it is to know when to use it.